The sun was a god in Egypt, and like all gods, it was both life-giving and cruel. Its light brought growth, ripened barley, and made the land fertile along the Nile. Yet, for every blessing, it demanded a price: sweat, exhaustion, and restless nights beneath its lingering heat. It was early morning when Khepri, a farmer in the small village not far from Thebes, rose from his reed mat. The first rays of sunlight had just broken over the eastern horizon, painting the desert sands in shades of gold and red. The Nile, still wrapped in the cool mist of dawn, glimmered faintly. But even in those early hours, there was a heaviness in the air, a promise of the heat to come. Khepri splashed his face with water from a clay jar, its coolness already fading from the night. He tied his simple linen kilt, worn thin from seasons of labor, and stepped outside. His wife, Nefru, was grinding barley on a stone slab, her arms moving in steady rhythm. The sound of stone against grain was as familiar as birdsong. Their son, Hori, still half asleep, sat nearby chewing on a piece of bread from the previous evening. "Go with your father today," Nefru said softly, handing the boy a small jug of water. "The fields need many hands." Khepri smiled at the boy, ruffling his hair. The day would be long, but in Egypt, work and family were woven together like the threads of linen. By the time they reached the fields, the sun had risen higher, already burning the tops of their shoulders. The Nile's waters had receded after the floods, leaving behind black silt that made the land rich. Khepri worked alongside his neighbors, bending low to tend the crops, his body glistening with sweat. As the hours dragged forward, the heat deepened. The soil beneath their feet was warm, and the air around them seemed to waver and bend in shimmering waves. The farmers sang work chants in unison, partly to keep rhythm, partly to distract their minds from the relentless blaze overhead. Young Hori grew tired quickly. His small hands tried to mimic his father's movements, but soon he sat down, covering his face with his arms. Khepri handed him a drink from the clay jug, the water lukewarm but still precious. "This is the way of Ra," Khepri told him gently, speaking of the sun god. "He gives us strength, but he tests us as well." The boy nodded, though he didn't quite understand. For him, Ra's test was too great today. When the day's labor ended, Khepri and his son trudged back through the village streets. The mud-brick houses, square and simple, lined the narrow pathways. Chickens clucked in the dust, children ran barefoot, and the smell of fish drying on wooden racks filled the air. Their home was no different from the others, practical, built to keep the family close to the earth. Yet the walls, thick and strong, held the heat of the day. Inside, the air was heavy, pressing against the lungs. Merit, Khepri's elderly mother, sat by the doorway, fanning herself with a woven palm frond. Her face, lined with age, carried the story of countless summers survived. "It grows hotter each year," she muttered as they entered. "The gods test us more than they once did." Nefru was preparing the evening meal. She had drawn water from the well earlier, and it now sat in clay jars, covered with damp cloths to keep them cooler. Bread baked in the communal oven rested on the table, along with onions, lentils, and a small piece of fish that Pacer, their fisherman neighbor, had given in trade. They ate together in silence. The food was simple, but the act of eating together was sacred. Outside, the light faded slowly, but the heat did not. The mud-brick walls radiated warmth like an oven, and beads of sweat continued to form on their brows even in the absence of the sun. When night finally arrived, the family faced their greatest challenge: sleep. Inside the house, the air was suffocating. No breeze came through the narrow slits that served as windows. The reed mats, though better than the hard earth, offered little comfort. Nefru dipped a cloth in water and spread it over her son's small body, hoping the dampness would bring relief. Khepri suggested they move to the roof. Their home, like many in Egypt, had a flat rooftop designed not just for storage, but also for nights like these. Climbing the ladder, they carried their mats and spread them beneath the open sky. At last, the air felt lighter. From the rooftop, they could see the village rooftops dotted with other families doing the same. Across the horizon, torches flickered faintly, and the Nile gleamed like a silver ribbon under the moonlight. Hori lay down beside his father, staring at the stars that stretched endlessly above. His eyes widened as his grandmother, Merit, pointed to constellations. "See there," she said softly, her voice like the wind. "That is Osiris, the great god of the afterlife, watching over us. And there's Sirius, the star of Isis. When she rises, the Nile will flood, and life will return to the land." The boy listened, comforted by the stories. To him, the stars were guardians, far stronger than the heat that weighed on his body. But sleep did not come easily. Mosquitoes buzzed, the air still clung with warmth, and sweat continued to form. Khepri closed his eyes, yet his mind remained restless. He thought of the fields, the harvest to come, and whether the Nile would flood generously this year. He thought of his son, who would one day take his place in the fields, and whether Hori would grow strong enough to endure such nights. The sounds of the village filled the air, dogs barking, donkeys braying, the distant murmur of voices. Occasionally, laughter echoed from a neighbor's roof as families told stories to distract themselves from the discomfort. Hours passed, and gradually the breeze from the river grew cooler. At last, Khepri felt his body give way, his muscles surrendering to rest. His breath slowed, his heartbeat calmed, and the night wrapped around him like a gentle shroud. For now, they had survived another day beneath the scorching sun of the Nile. Tomorrow would come with the same trials. But tonight, beneath the gaze of the stars and the gentle hum of the river, the family found a fragile peace. Throughout this opening chapter, the reader senses the daily rhythm of ancient Egyptian life. Mud brick homes that stored heat, meals of bread, onions, and fish. Families retreating to rooftops for cooler sleep. Cultural reliance on Ra, the sun god, and constellations. Linked to Egyptian mythology. The Nile's importance as both a provider and comforter. This was Egypt's paradox. The land flourished under the sun. Yet the same sun made life harsh and sleep elusive.